Hi everyone, this is Jo Kalea from Pregnancy and Me, and today I'm joined with Ruth Jamieson from the Modern Diabetic, and we'll be talking about type 1 diabetes. So welcome today, Ruth. It's good to see you again.
Thank you, you too.
Great. So tell me a little bit about type 1 diabetes, and can you get pregnant with type 1 diabetes?
Okay. So type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, and autoimmune diseases are where the body's immune system is mistaking part of itself, so its own tissue, as foreign. So the part of the immune system's job is to kind of trawl through and sort of destroy anything that shouldn't be there, like bacteria and viruses and foreign proteins.
Right.
But in an autoimmune disease, and there are various different theories on why this happens, but in autoimmune disease, the body mistakes itself, some of its own body tissue, as an enemy, and it starts destroying that body tissue. And the theories around this are that the immune system maybe didn't develop properly in childhood. So when you're born, you have your innate and your adaptive immune system. And your innate is kind of just what you're born with. Your adaptive is one that learns in response to its environment. And the more the body sort of comes into contact with foreign things, the more it learns the difference between itself and foe. And there are theories that because we are too sterile and too clean, and also taking a lot of antibiotics, which is killing our good bacteria, and not being breastfed, and all these various different things, that this part of the immune system doesn't develop properly, and therefore there's an increased risk of autoimmune disease. There is like a genetic component as well, so that some people are more predisposed to getting autoimmunity than others, but it's not, you're not born with an autoimmune disease, and just because you have those genes doesn't mean that you'll get it. There's plenty of cases where there are identical twins where one develops autoimmune disease and the other one doesn't. So in type 1, the body's immune system is destroying the beta cells on the pancreas that produce insulin. And one of insulin's jobs is to manage the amount of glucose that comes from our food, from carbohydrates, that then gets broken down into glucose in the blood, and then to take that glucose and put it into the cells for energy. So the body in type 1 diabetes, those beta cells are being destroyed or have been destroyed, and so the body is unable to produce insulin to do that. And so people have to inject with synthetic insulin to manage their blood sugar.
Right.
So the second part is that, can you get pregnant?
Yeah.
Most certainly you can.
Right.
You can.
Oh, that's good. That's great news. And so how does type 1 affect someone in pregnancy?
Okay, so if you have type 1 diabetes and you want to get pregnant, or you are pregnant, it's considered a high risk pregnancy, because a lot of people with any diabetes, they've got a lot of high blood sugar unless they're able to manage their blood sugar. And so this has the risk for making the baby sort of grow bigger than it should. So this can complicate sort of labor and birth, and quite often people with type 1 or any diabetes, they will be induced 2 weeks earlier. They're always monitoring the size of the baby. They might, quite often it ends in cesarean, because obviously if you induce labor, it usually doesn't end well. The other thing is that if the woman has had high blood sugar throughout her pregnancy, the baby's pancreas, because it'll be getting all this extra glucose, will be secreting a lot of insulin to manage it. And so quite often the risk is that when that baby is born, the pancreas is still secreting quite a lot of insulin, and then the baby risks getting low blood sugar after birth. So it can have seizures and have an enlarged heart. And then long term, there is an increased risk for that child to develop type 2.
Right.
So, it's really, really, really important before you get pregnant to get your blood sugar under control, and throughout pregnancy to maintain really good blood sugar. And I'm not talking about the ranges that they recommend for people with diabetes. I actually mean trying to get it as close as possible to somebody without diabetes. So,
right.
Having an A1C of 5%, because I know normally they say, oh, so long as it's under 7%, it's okay. I really feel that it should be around 5.
Right.
It is totally possible for someone with diabetes to get normal, the same as somebody without diabetes' blood sugar. But they quite often, for people with diabetes, they have a higher reference range and let their blood sugar run a little higher. And I feel like, it's much better to get it as close to normal as possible.
Yeah. Right, and that's through diet and exercise, is that right?
Yeah, so the best tools is through diet, low carb. There are so many factors that can influence blood sugar, and especially when someone is pregnant. As we spoke in previous videos about the insulin resistance that comes with pregnancy.
Yes.
But also, some women find that, especially I guess if not all of their beta cells have been destroyed and they might still be producing a little bit of insulin, when you become pregnant, your immune system kind of calms down a bit. And so the autoimmune, a lot of people with any autoimmune disease, that autoimmune disease kind of calms down, the attack calms down. And so they might sometimes need less insulin for a while, and then sometimes need more. So they need to kind of keep much more of an eye on their blood sugar. And like I said, that their hormones, all these different things will be affecting their blood sugar. And it's really hard to control those things, whereas you can really control the amount of carbohydrates you take. And yes, exercise as well. The other really good thing is, and it's becoming more and more common now, is to get a continuous glucose monitor. So this is like, I've got this. There's a few out there. This is the Libra. And this stays in my arm for 2 weeks at a time. And I can use an app on my phone to scan it. And what it does, I'll show you.
That sounds amazing.
It gives me like, this is my blood sugar over the last since midnight last night. So the last 9 hours. And it saves me having to prick my finger all the time. But it really, like, if you can be scanning all the time, you can catch when your blood sugar is starting to go up. You can then go, oh, well, it was that food, it was that thing I've got to be careful of, or I need to adjust my medication. I can make little corrections, so I do that a lot with myself. If it's going up, I'm like, okay, I need to have a little bit of insulin to kind of bring it back down again. And this really is so valuable, along with a low carb diet, to help you sort of keep an eye on things and keep a much tighter control.
Yeah, like micromanaging it, so you can see exactly what's going on.
And you need to, because that's what a healthy pancreas would be doing. It's you have to be your pancreas when you have diabetes, and there's all these amazing tools now that can really, really help.
Yeah, well, that's just amazing. I might, when we send this off to everyone, we'll also include maybe a little description about what you're wearing and what it does, so everyone's also aware of maybe looking at getting one for themselves, so they can monitor themselves.
I mean, their doctors should be able to prescribe it to them. I mean, this one is like it's the cheapest one, but it's really good. You get other ones that are like a lot more expensive. So there's a whole range of things out there. So I can kind of write a few links for people to have a look at the different ones. So it's only prescribed from your GP, your doctor? Yep.
Right.
Yeah, but you can, this one you can actually buy on Amazon and stuff like that. There are
Right.
people that are selling it because, funnily enough, there are a lot of non-diabetics who wear this because they're interested in learning how things affect their blood sugar. Because actually, even if you're not diabetic, you might find certain foods really raise your blood sugar. You know, if you eat a whole tub of ice cream, it's a lot of sugar, and not everybody's body can manage that. You know, so
that's fabulous tool. Sounds terrific. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. And I know we touched on it a little bit, but so can you pass on type 1 to young babies or newborn?
Yeah, so you can't pass on type 1, but for sure you can pass on some of your risk genes.
Okay.
You know, because there is this genetic risk, and, you know, it doesn't always happen. You know, you hear about some families where it's like the mother got it and both their children got it eventually, and you get other ones where there's nobody in the family, only one person got it. And, you know, it comes down to, again, like the genes load the gun, but it's the environment that pulls the trigger. And with type 1 diabetes, it's one of the least understood autoimmune diseases. You know, you've got celiac, which is an autoimmune disease, which we know is it's gluten. Take gluten out the diet, the gut heals, and the person is symptom free. But with type 1, they don't know. You know, gluten is involved, I think, you know, in most autoimmune diseases. It's in there because we don't make the enzyme to break down gluten, and in a lot of people it causes inflammation and can cause the leaky gut. And casein is another one, and then there are certain viruses that they think are involved, but it's never the same thing in each person. It's never just one thing. It's often like a combination of things, and sometimes people find they got really ill, or they had some kind of severe accident or something like that. That was because quite often when we become ill in any way, there's a lot of little things bubbling underneath, and the body's managing it, and then some other big thing comes along, and it's kind of, that's the main trigger that causes the disease. So for sure you can pass on some of the risk genes, but you can't actually pass on the disease.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's, I guess with everything and anything, you just need to be vigilant. You need to check, always keep an eye, monitoring and seeing what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I do that with my son, you know, because it's something I worry about. My dad had type 1, and then I got it, you know, much later on in life. And there's a lot of autoimmune disease on my dad's side of the family. There's celiac, there's rheumatoid arthritis, and then there's type 1. So I am doing everything that I am aware of. And I know it's not a guarantee, like there are some things that are out of my control, but the things that are in my control, you know, he doesn't eat gluten, he barely eats any grains, he doesn't eat cow dairy. I make sure that he's emotionally sort of happy. I'm always investigating his poo to see whether there's any kind of gut issues. I've done things like check to see whether he's got heavy metal toxicity. You know, so there's all of these things, and I feel very blessed that like I've got all of this knowledge and but you know, that can help me, but I know it's no guarantee. You know, there are things I can't stop him getting some certain virus that maybe might just be the thing that is the trigger, but it might not be a trigger. You know what I mean? So you do as best you can to prevent it.
Exactly. That's all we can do, I think. Just do our best. So no, that's really interesting. And I guess we touched on it as well. The best way to manage this while you're pregnant, I think you mentioned, you know. Yeah,
so definitely it's doing low carb. It's getting the continuous glucose monitor. And then also when it comes up to, you know, because they want to induce you, you know, just bearing in mind, like if your baby doesn't look too big, because they'll do scans every 2 weeks, and if your baby doesn't look too big, you know, you have a right to kind of say, well, you know, can we just let this go to full term? I really think getting a doula, and writing a birth plan, because otherwise, you know, especially it was my case as well, I was in labor for a long time. By the time my son was born, I was exhausted and things didn't quite go the way I wanted at the end. And if I'd had a doula there that was there to kind of say, no, this is what she wants. You know, a lot of women find that they don't need as much insulin or very little insulin when they're going through labor, because it's like full-on exercise, and that in itself brings their blood sugar down. So if they feel like they've got really good control and knowledge around that, they can sit and write a plan with their doctor on how they want that labor to go. Because, you know, as well, the other thing is they want to put you on a drip with glucose and insulin and have you lay on the bed and give birth that way. And of course, that's not the way we're supposed to birth.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, you know, if you've got good control and you feel like it, I mean, what I did throughout my labor, I didn't take any insulin. I didn't eat anything, and I just tested my blood sugar like every couple of hours, and I was like, you know, I've got this, and I just said to them, look, if it seems like I haven't got this, you can take over, but I've got this. And so it allowed me not to be strapped to a bed the whole time with all of this thing. And then also the other thing is, when the baby is born, they will test the baby's blood sugar, because they're wanting to make sure there's no low blood sugar in the baby.
Right.
And this is something as well you can have some control around. If you know that your blood sugar was really, really well controlled throughout pregnancy, the chances of that baby having this hyperglycemia after birth is very, very rare. And I wish I'd known this when Eli was born, because they checked his blood sugar and his blood sugar was 4 millimolars, and they thought that that was too low. And actually, babies are born in a state of ketosis with low blood sugar, and actually they are using ketones and fats to feed their growing brain, because that's one of the most important things for their brain.
Yes.
But I was struggling to breastfeed. I was just getting colostrum. I wasn't getting it, and they were really worried, and they took him and they made some baby formula and they threw it down him, and he threw it up and it came out of his nose, and it was like, that, you know, like, that doesn't have to happen. The baby's also got so much body fat to feed itself off as well. So
yes, that's
you know,
true.
get them to keep monitoring the baby's blood sugar for sure, but like, don't just let them sort of take over and do that. You know, do your research, because if the baby's blood sugar is around 4, it's probably fine. And if your blood sugar has been as close to a normal, healthy person's throughout pregnancy, the chances of this hyperglycemia are slim. And, you know, I feel very strongly about breastfeeding, and especially to help the baby's immune system and prevent autoimmunity, and the breast milk is best. And if you're getting formula, you're putting cow's milk in, which is going to increase the risk of that baby potentially getting type 1 or other autoimmune diseases. So there's, again, it's just do your research and find doctors that will work with you, and every step of the way, don't let them force their ideas on you if you've really done your research and you know what you're doing, and definitely get a doula, or if your husband or something is really, mine was a bit, at the end of it, he was a bit exhausted as well, and couldn't fight my corner. But
and I think with most people, your first pregnancy, you're not always confident, and I guess with your second one, you're sort of prepared, even though, look, you can never predict the outcome of any birth, but you're a little bit more prepared and a little bit more confident into exactly what you want. And there's so many choices out there for women now. You know, there's the doulas. We've also got hypnobirthing as well as another area women could look at. And it's just doing your research, finding out what you're comfortable with, having that birth plan ready, so that, you know, you talk, you discuss that with your GP, with your family. You know, the family members will be present at the birth. So everyone's on board, that, you know, advocating for you. So when you're not able to advocate for yourself, they're there to pick up the and run with, to pick up the banner and run with it. So so it is terribly important, isn't it? It's with everything, I think. You really got to do your research and understand your body. Get to know your body.
Exactly. And usually if you've got a good doctor and a good team like I did, if they can see you know what you're talking about and you've done your research, they are more likely to support you,
Yes, that's right. That's right. And I totally agree with that. Well, this has been another interesting session, Ruth. It's been wonderful speaking with you, and I hope we'll be able to tackle type 2 next week. So if you're still available, let's tackle
definitely.
So thank you again for joining me today. It's been a wonderful discussion on type 1 diabetes and pregnancy. I hope the mums and new mums are all finding it interesting too. So thank you for joining us. And you've been watching Jo Kalea from Pregnancy Me and Ruth Jamieson from the Modern Diabetic. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.